What's up, you guys? Welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome to episode 1 of Road to the Olympia series for yet another Olympia prep. This is my 5th time going to the Olympia, my 5th time doing one of these series, so I'm super excited and just super grateful. It's not only just another Olympia prep, but this year is going to be my Olympia title defense prep. So I'm beyond excited, motivated, focused, thrilled, grateful, all the feelings, you name it, to jump into this prep, get things started, and take you guys along with me through this entire journey from start to finish. Transitioning from a long off season, it's been 10 months of off season, which has been super long but productive and much needed. And in hindsight, where I am now looking back, I am so happy that I did take that time off to rest, to recover, to come back fresh, and just to make sure that my body was in a really good starting point to start this prep so I could be at my best and make the improvements that I wanted to bring to the stage. So I'm just so excited. I can't even put it into words, but cannot wait for this prep and week by week to kind of peel back things and see what the improvements are that I can bring to stage this year. As you guys know, I decided to sit out the season this year and only do the Olympia. I will not be doing any other shows, only the Olympia, as of right now at least. So I did have to make that really tough decision to not do the Arnold's, which was so hard for me to make that call because I really wanted to do the Arnold, especially coming off of the Olympia win. I was motivated, I was excited. You have that post-show high going on, and I was like, yep, let's do the Arnold, let's jump right into it. But once I actually sat down and looked at the timeline of things and what my long-term goals were and what was going to be the best thing for me, I knew me competing at the Arnold would not be conducive to my long-term goal, which was to defend my title at the Olympia, to win my second Bikini Olympia title. And I knew that as much as I wanted to defend my title at the Arnold's with the timeline of things, because it was so soon after Olympia, I would pretty much just have to prep straight through into the Arnold. And then from the Arnold to Olympia, I wouldn't have had much time to do an off season, maybe a couple months, not even, like maybe 2 months off. And I knew that after being in a deficit for so long, I really could use the off season. I honestly haven't had a true off season since I turned pro. So my first year at the Olympia in 2018, I was 10th. And then I did a string of shows the following year. I did the Arnold. I was actually 4th at my very first Arnold in 2019. I did the Olympia and I was 5th in 2019. And then I took I think I had maybe 3 or 4 months off because I had my boobs done, so I was recovering. So I wouldn't really call that an off season because I really didn't have a ton of time to be improving. It was more so just recovery period because obviously I wasn't training at that time. And then I got into my prep, and that's when COVID hit in 2020 and it was kind of just everything shut down. I did end up winning my very first pro show at Tampa Pro, and then I went to the Olympia and I placed 2nd at the Olympia. And then I had, I think maybe 4 months off after that year's Olympia before I started my prep last year. And then last year I did Tampa Pro, and then I did Nashville 2 weeks later. I did the Arnold, I think 6 weeks later, and then the Olympia 2 weeks later. So my body had been prepping for a long period of time. I knew that there was improvements that I wanted to make. And as hard as it was to make that call, I knew long term what my goal was and what it was going to take to get me there. That's why I just had to not just look at what was right in front of me. And sometimes as athletes, it's hard to look past what's right here, what we want, what's within our grasp, and look a little bit further and take your emotions out of it to see what's truly going to be the best for you long term. So I knew that I wanted to defend my title at the Olympia. There was improvements that I wanted to make, and I knew that as much as I wanted to do the Arnold, me competing there would probably hinder those improvements just based on the timeline that I would have to continue prepping and wouldn't really have a chance to give my body the rest that it needed or to really make any improvements to my physique. It was definitely tough to sit it out, and to watch everyone competing was, one, super motivating for me. I got to go to the Arnold, got to be backstage, do all the interviews, and even just like me sitting there, I definitely had FOMO that I wasn't on stage, but I knew deep down that it was for the best and it was going to pay off tenfold to let my body rest and recover. And with where I'm at now, I can honestly, genuinely say it was so worth sitting out and waiting for, as tough as it was. And it was also kind of nice to be able to watch as a spectator and just enjoy the show and the production of the show and the incredible caliber of the athletes, because everyone looked so good at all the shows this year, whether it was the Arnold, Pittsburgh Pro, New York Pro, all those top shows. So me getting to be like up front watching them was just even more motivating for me in my off season, which really helped to keep me on track and stay focused on what my goal was and what I wanted to bring to the Olympia. So there was a couple goals that I had for my off season that I really wanted to stay within and accomplish in terms of improvements and certain focuses that I had. The number one thing being to maintain a leaner physique in my off season. One, because I knew that I was going to have such a long period of time for my off season. It was going to be like 10 months of an off season versus just maybe 2 or 3 months. So I really wanted something that was going to be a sustainable look for me, where I felt good, I was able to produce content, do photo shoots, feel comfortable in my skin, but obviously still be making the improvements I needed and give my body the rest that it needed. So I had set a cap for myself to not go over 140 pounds, which was 15 pounds above my stage weight, which is 125. So that was my number one goal for this off season, knowing it was going to be a long off season, but also keeping in mind what my feedback was last year was always conditioning could be like a little bit tighter. So I knew that having a leaner off season, keeping my weight down in my off season would greatly help me when it came time to prep, just making my prep a lot easier having a leaner starting point. That being said, I also wanted to take a longer time to prep because I also know that my first show is not usually my best look. So although I'm only going to be doing the Olympia, the game plan is to prep for a couple weeks ahead of that to plan to peak into the Olympia as if I'm doing a couple shows but not actually doing them, if that makes sense. So kind of like a mock peak, like a fake peak for a show, so that way come time for the Olympia I am 100% on, ready, locked and loaded, ready to go with zero room for anything to not be at 110%. So that's really what the goal was, that I wanted to hold myself accountable to, and I'm super proud of myself. I've had an incredible off season. I had a good balance of structure and balance this off season, where I think it's important as an athlete, you don't just throw everything out the window in your off season. It's important to have that structure, but it's also important to have a little bit of balance in your off season, because obviously during prep as an elite athlete, there really isn't balance in the prep. For me at least, it's like 100% in, and there's nothing less than that in terms of the effort that I put into my prep. So in my off season, it's important for me to have a little bit of balance, get to enjoy my life, especially since I knew I was going to be in a long-term off season. So Monday through Friday, I was pretty strict with the meal plan. I followed it probably like 90% adherence. I really didn't eat out or have anything off plan unless it was like a special occasion throughout the week. And then Saturday, Sunday, I would just allow myself to enjoy whatever I wanted. Obviously not binging or going crazy, but just intuitively eating whatever I kind of craved, whatever I felt like. And my training sessions were awesome. I kept up with my cardio, did not miss a cardio session, and just kept that very moderate just to keep everything in a really good spot. So super proud of myself for that. I can check off that box. I actually started my prep at 137 pounds, so I am below that weight cap that I wanted to be for my off season. And I think I just needed that extra time to recover and drop the inflammation and let my body level out, because it took me, I feel like I maintained at a pretty good spot. I went up a bit and then it came back down. And the last few months, I feel like I've been pretty easily able to maintain in a really good spot here without really trying too hard. So that way, when I do start a prep, it's easy that I don't have to kill myself right off the bat. It's just going to be a slow, gradual prep is the game plan. Keep my food high, keep my cardio low. And it's exciting for me because I haven't had a true off season, like I said. So to see things come together 1 week at a time is exciting. As an amateur, I always took long off seasons because I felt like it benefited my body well. So if you're debating taking a long off season or not, and you have improvements to make, take the off season, give your body a chance to rest, to recover, and I promise it will pay off tenfold if you make sure mentally and physically you're in an optimal point to start your prep. Because if you start a prep and you're already doing a lot of cardio and not eating a lot of food and you have a lot of inflammation, where are you going to go from there? So that was my main thing, was just getting my mind right, getting my body right, and getting to a really, really good start, so that way it could have a nice smooth prep. And so far so good. Another one of my goals for this off season was I wanted to bring up my legs a little bit, not in terms of size and the muscularity, but just in terms of the detail and the definition, because I hadn't been training my legs, specifically my quads, for the last little while, just because I had worked really hard to bring up my upper body to match. I naturally am more lower body dominant, so it was a little bit of a balancing act to try and make sure that my upper body wasn't looking too small next to my legs. Most females are lower body dominant, so I actually had taken out a lot of the leg training in my training the past couple of years to atrophy my quads, to bring down the size, to make sure that they were balanced. And now that I've been able to bring up my upper body so much to achieve that balance, I felt like I was missing a little bit of details and definition in my legs just from not training them. So I have been training legs again. Excited to see how that pays off as I keep chipping away at body fat and obviously on stage how that translates. This is my 3rd week of prep, so I wanted to give myself a chance to actually adapt to things and be consistent before I make any adjustments. And I just did my check-in this morning. My husband and I coach myself, so I still do check-ins as I would have a client do check-ins. Like, I have a WhatsApp group that I had made for us. I do like pretty much the same thing as I would have a client do. I have my questionnaire that I fill out about how I'm feeling, how the week went. Just did my check-in just to see how things are looking, and I'll show you guys a sneak peek of this, but I'm super excited with how things look compared to last year at this point, 17 weeks out. Comparing to last year, I'm about 10 pounds lighter. Going to this prep in terms of mentally where I'm at, super excited. I'm looking forward to it. Had such a long off season that I was excited to jump into my prep. And honestly, this is the most focused I've ever been in an off season. When I stepped off the Olympia stage and decided that I wasn't going to do the Arnold, I had one goal in my mind. Every training session, every day, you wake up, there's one goal in mind. And for me, that's to defend my title, to win the Olympia, to be better than what I was yesterday, and to do everything that I can to show up for myself in the best way possible. And that's all that I can control. So if you're competing and you're worried about someone else, you're focusing on the wrong thing. The only thing that you can control is yourself, your attitude, your effort, and how you show up every single day. So it's about beating yourself. It's about beating your previous best. What you thought was your best, beat that every year, just leveling up and getting better. And that's the exciting part about it, because there's literally no limit to how great you can be. You can always improve on something. I think that's what makes it so much fun and so motivating, is because it's all about personal improvement. And at the end of the day, the only person who can do it is you. Like, no one can do it for you. No one can do your workouts for you. No one can do your cardio for you or diet for you. No one knows if you gave 100% except for you, because no one's up here. Like, only you know if you really gave 100%. So if you go to bed every day knowing that you gave 100%, when it comes time for show day and you show up, you know you're ready. And that's what I go into every prep with, that mentality of, I don't want to leave anything to chance. I don't want to leave any stone unturned. And I don't ever want to cheat myself out of being at my best by cheating on my diet or skipping out on my cardio or anything like that that's not conducive to the end goal. So if you're in prep, keep that in mind. Whatever you want to see for the next video, comment below and let me know. We're 17 weeks out of the Olympia as of today, so I'm super, super excited to take you guys with me.